This is not just evil. This is a monstrous evil. And I've been a theologian. I've spent my whole life studying theology, teaching theology. And I can tell you, if I know anything at all about God, I know that God hates abortion. And I know that he will not tolerate this forever.
I was doing second trimester D&E abortions. I did over 100 of them. And they're pretty gruesome, very gruesome.
First thing you're going to reach is for a suction catheter. This is a 14 French suction catheter. It's about 9-10 inches long. It's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And picture yourself, if you can, placing this through the cervix and instructing your circulating nurse to turn on the suction machine. When you're done, reach for a SOFR clamp. This is one that I brought along so you can see what we're talking about. It's about 13 inches long. It's stainless steel. The business end on this clamp is about 1/2 inch wide and about 2.5 inches long. And there are rows of sharp teeth on this instrument. It's a grasping instrument, and when it gets a hold of something, it does not let go. Picture yourself, if you can, reaching in with this instrument and grasping blindly anything you can, and pull hard. And when it finally pops free, out comes a leg that big, which you put down on the table next to you. And reach in with this again and grasp and pull hard. Out comes an arm about the same length, which you put down on the table next to you. And reach in with this instrument again and again and tear out the spine, the intestines, heart and lungs.
And the abortionist will then attempt to grasp the free-floating head of the child in the uterus between the rings of this instrument. The head is then crushed, the contents of the head removed, and finally the bones of the head. And the abortion is then effectively at an end.
You had a day like I had a lot of days. Sometimes a face comes back and stares back at you. Congratulations. You just successfully performed a second trimester D&E abortion. You just affirmed her right to choose.
Well, she helped numerous women get abortions, but she's now a strong pro-life advocate who helps lead protests at the very clinic she once worked for.
I was called in to help, and my job was to hold the ultrasound probe on this woman's abdomen so that the physician could actually see the uterus on the ultrasound screen. And when I looked at the screen, I saw a baby on the screen. So I saw face to feet on the ultrasound machine. And I saw the probe going into the woman's uterus. And at that moment, I saw the baby moving and trying to get away from the probe.
We see the child's mouth wide open in a silent scream in this particular freeze frame. This is the silent scream of a child threatened imminently with extinction. Now the heart rate has speeded up dramatically, and the child's movements are violent at this point. It does sense aggression in its sanctuary. It is moving away. One can see it moving to the left side of the uterus in an attempt, a pathetic attempt, to escape the inexorable instruments which the abortionist is using.
Last thing I want to show you is probably the most chilling and frightening discovery that we found when we got into this building. So, this is the sink, or the scrub room, that they took the babies to. And they would literally put them down this sink, and as you can see, there's an industrial garbage disposal.
Well, Troy, you know, there are going to be people out there that say, well, oh, they didn't really grind them up in the garbage disposal. Some of the abortion defenders are going to say that. But there's absolutely no reason for a quote-unquote medical facility to have an industrial garbage disposal. This is, and we keep on hearing this from ex-employees, that that's what they did with them. I've had them come to my office and say,
That's right.
I had to work the scrub room, I had to hear the babies ground up, I had to push them down the garbage disposal. And now, this is absolute irrefutable proof that this is what happens. And
You'll notice the bleach. You'll notice the Drano.
I guess the baby parts clogged it up sometimes.
Oh, I can smell it from here, but listen to this. This is the sound of grinding babies.
What is that smell?
It's pretty bad.
That's-
Something came up. Obviously, the smell of death is heavy right here in this room, and definitely down that disposal.
You know, you sit here and you look at that, Troy, and you think about it's even worse than being in those procedure rooms. This is where thousands of babies left this earth. They went down that drain, and you know, I guess one of the things that I keep telling people about the saddest aspect of the abortion issue is that God sends a little child here, puts a child in a woman's womb, sends it to this earth, and the only interaction that child ever has with other human beings is with the mother who took him to a place like this, and with the animal who flushed him down that sink. And if this nation thinks that it can continue to do this sort of thing, and that there's not going to be a price to pay for it, we are nuts. This is going to come back on us, and I think it's already starting.
I do. Absolutely.
I have worked with aborted fetuses. I have during the course of my scientific studies, and I don't believe that the things that I have dealt with in the lab situation, which have come from abortions, are human beings. They look like them, they resemble them in physically, but they are not human beings.
Good Lord! I mean, this is concentration camp
The
language.
question is, though, I suppose
They look like human beings, but they know they're not. They're Jews.
I mean,
I'm puzzled by that.
It's amazing. They're not human beings. It's the oldest thing in the book. Isn't it? Before you kill, you dehumanize. You say they're not really. No. I'm not. This isn't any kind of killing of a human being. It's something else. We declassify it. We give it another name. Give me strength.
I believe that the concept unborn child is a real concept, yes. And I've had a lot of quarrels with some of my fellow materialists and secularists on this point. I think that if the concept child means anything, the concept unborn child can be said to mean something. And actually all the discoveries of embryology, which have been very considerable in the last generation or so, and of viability, appear to confirm that opinion, which is, I think it should be innate in everybody, is innate in the Hippocratic Oath, is instinct in anyone who's ever watched a sonogram, and so forth.
Fetology, as you know, is a new science. It uses new technology, such as ultrasound and electronic fetal heart monitoring, many other new modalities, which are sophisticated and fantastic. And we have opened up the whole life of the fetus for study. And of course, those studies have finally culminated in a growing realization that the fetus is entirely similar, identical to any of us, that it's a member of the human community, and as a result, all the rights and privileges and protections which we are afforded should, of course, flow to that person. The expanding, the burgeoning of fetology has created and is creating a very serious problem in hospitals. There is a paradox, an antinomy, if you like, in that on one floor of a hospital, we are now diagnosing the illness of the fetus. We are using all these technologies to treat it with medication. We are even performing surgery on it now. And on the next floor down, that very same fetus is being casually destroyed for no reason whatever.
My conviction 20 years ago that if we could persuade people that this was a human life that we were taking, that the debate would be over and it would be a very short time until Roe v. Wade would be repealed. And to my utter astonishment, that has not been the case. More and more and more people clearly agree. Yes, this is a human being. It's an unborn human being, but it's an unwanted unborn human being. And they have no problems with continuing the process, even though they are ready to admit that what they're doing is destroying the life of an unborn human person, living human person.
Now, if you want to tell me that there is a human being, I might call it a fetus, there is a human being that in order to stay alive must have access to all of my organs, my womb, my uterus, my kidneys, my lungs, then I would say to you that it has to be my choice whether I donate the use of my body to that individual. And if I choose not to, much as that might be harsh, it's still my choice and I should be respected.
Put yourself in a woman's shoes. Put yourself... Okay, I used to believe that insanity. Then God, praise Him, opened my eyes and showed me the truth and showed me the common sense and how deluded I was to believe this.
It's the most perfect illustration of the position in which the person who acknowledges no absolute law gets himself into. He can argue himself within 10 minutes into the most appalling positions without even realizing that they're appalling.
I got pregnant, first time, and I didn't have the support, and so I was so scared, and I didn't know what to do, and chose to not have it. One of the biggest mistakes. And I would break down and I would just cry. Because I can't believe I'm crying. Because I wasn't a mommy. I cried almost every day for almost 9 years.
October 5th, 2011 represents the worst day of my life. Because that day I walked into an abortion facility and took the life of my first child. That day holds my biggest regret. I walked into that clinic just very numb and wasn't thinking for myself. And I walked out of that abortion facility hurt and weak and numb and not empowered at all. And for 5 years, I suffered and suppressed that grief and that pain that I didn't even know I had. I think society had told me there wasn't anything that I needed to grieve. There wasn't anything that I needed to regret because it was just a blob of tissue, right? It wasn't a baby at that time, right? And I listened to those lies. And so I tried to just cover that up with alcohol and relationships and other Band-Aids. And then finally, I gave in and said, I can't live this way anymore. I don't want to hurt anymore. There's something in me telling me that I need to deal with this pain. So I ended up connecting with some people that changed my life. And I ended up going to a church that had post-abortive recovery for women. And at first I said, no way. I will never go through that because I'm not supposed to talk about this, right? This is supposed to be a secret. But I went very half-heartedly and started the recovery process. After recovery, I walked out of there a completely different person. And that's who I am today. And it was able to give my child an identity and dignity. And it taught me what love actually is and what Christ's love really is. And taught me what forgiveness is and what grace actually means and redemption. And through that, I was able to forgive myself. I was able to love others differently. And I'm able to love a child that I didn't know that I had until then. And the child that I hope to meet in heaven one day. And through that, now I work for Students for Life of America as the National Programs Coordinator. I've now been called to a mission to give other women that hope and that future, and to tell other women about grace and redemption and healing, because society tells women that abortion is okay, or you don't need to grieve, and it's not a wound, but it is. And I just want them to know that there are resources and there are people here to support you and love you and help you through this.